Welcome back to Mountain Health Today. Harry, good to have you with us. You've been CEO now for more than a year with the Tahoe Forest Health System, and I know one of the things that is very important to you that you often speak about is the legacy of Tahoe Forest, how it came to be, why it's in the Truckee-Tahoe region. If you would share with us a little bit of that story.
Thank you, Ted. These special historic stories are really critical to healthcare, and the special story of Dick Joseph, who he and his wife arrived in Truckee in the 1920s and really decided to make a home in Truckee and own several businesses, and were prominent individuals in the community. And several years later, Dick and Margaret were expecting twins, and very regretfully, Margaret passed away during childbirth of the twins. And what's really special about this story is that...
I don't mean to interrupt, but Harry, I wanted to back up. They were traveling, if I recall, down to the nearest healthcare services or hospital, which was Reno.
Correct.
And this predates I-80, so that was quite a journey in and of itself, and that complicated?
That is correct. There wasn't really a hospital to deliver babies at that particular time, and so Margaret passed away due to difficulties in delivering the twins, and just a very sad, avoidable healthcare tragedy. And so what Dick did, he could have focused inward and not really done anything positive in the community, but he did something very special, and that is to really reach out to save lives for thousands of residents that might live in the community and for many years, many decades into the future. And so around the 1950s, he donated land, which really became the catalyst for where Tahoe Forest Health System is today. And not only just the giving of the land, which started the hospital, but then giving annually just about every year since then via the Joseph Family Trust. And that loving act has saved thousands of lives over the years.
So I know that in California following World War II, there was enabling legislation that the citizens took advantage of to create a hospital district.
Correct.
So Tahoe Forest is a special district or a governed hospital.
Correct.
It's fair to say that if Mr. Joseph had not donated the land, that it wouldn't be there today because the citizens didn't have enough oomph to really push it. So it was a combination of the ability to form it and then his generous donation.
That is correct. And he really recognized that when you really rank all those most important things in life, whether it's bank accounts, homes, retirement accounts, etc., that precious gift of access to proactive, holistic health care is the most precious gift. And he wanted all residents for all future years to have that here in Truckee, and so he made that very important gift of land and then money in subsequent years.
And I also understand that he did lose a son in the war.
Yes.
And so the street that leads you into Tahoe Forest is named after his son as well. So he had two daughters.
Yes.
And they continued the legacy. How did they do that?
Well, they continued it really, I believe, heavily with Dick's sisters over the years as well, really making sure that that they stayed attentive to Tahoe Forest needs and really making annual donations every year for many decades, even to the present.
Even to the present day.
Yes.
And I understand that more recently at an event we had representatives from that family trust that still gives today.
We sure did.
And those are significant gifts, and they're very important to healthcare in the modern world. Share with us why that is.
Well, in healthcare, every community has great challenges with starting of healthcare, and so to have this loving act, this benevolent act, who knows whether healthcare would have really taken off, how big it would have been, when it would have happened, and to have had roughly a 65-year legacy, give or take a year or two, that's a very special outcome from a loving act, roughly in the 1950s, so very special.
And that was a very different time. I I know that the first hospital, the first building, I think we had 11 beds in there at that time
Right.
in the early 1950s, and that served all of eastern Nevada County and eastern Placer County and some other areas as well.
Right.
So that was a rather broad area, although not as heavily populated as it is today. I wanted to ask, we're going to get into a little bit of discussion later on how the hospital has grown. But I know it was with your urging that the new Women's Health and Newborn Care honors the Josephs. And you felt that was very important.
Right. The whole catalyst was the regretful loss of Dick's wife, Margaret, in a childbirth situation. And to really, as we focus on a brand new Joseph Family Women and Newborn Center, which is the name, it had not had a family name or legacy name attached to it, that our team really wanted to honor that legacy, that founding legacy for Tahoe Forest Health System, and call it the Joseph Family Women and Newborn Center, which we're very humbled to share with the whole community. So it's a reminder of a very loving act as we look to really find other individuals in our community who have the same loving attributes as the Joseph family did, so that we continue to propel healthcare forward in a very loving, proactive way.
I believe, I probably am speaking for many, that there's a great deal of appreciation that you locked into that legacy and that history of our Truckee Tahoe region. And I would tell you that I think you've given some rebirth to the memory of the Joseph family and the generosity through philanthropy that they've provided. So I thank you for doing that, for being one that's new in the community. That's quite a feat in and of itself.
Thank you.
This is Mountain Health Today. I'm your host, Ted Owens. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a moment and continue our talk with Harry Weiss, CEO of Tahoe Forest Health System.